impersonate Harry and Carrie, who were street entertainers in the St Austell and St Blazey area in the early 1900s. Carrie was a step dancer and Harry was a musician. They got their name from a popular song of the time about a courting couple who got caught by the tide. I have the words right here. Harry and Carrie, down by the rolling sea. Harry thought Carrie was jolly fine company. 5 long weary hours they sat there. Oh, what a nice to do. He howled, she howled, and the sea howled too. In 1861, the author Walter White wrote a book called A Londoner's Trip to Land's End. The chapter on St Austell tells us about a wrestling match and the musicians leading up to the sight. I have his words here. At the first notes of the drum and clarinet, I walked up to the field where the ring was formed on the smooth turf, and where each tavern had an improvised tap, with casks of ale, bottles of spirits, pipes and tobacco, all in readiness. A considerable number of spectators were already seated on the forms around the ring, some of them none the better for drink, and a few lying in drunken sleep in the ring. Ere long up came the music, followed by the wrestlers and their friends, and their arrival was the signal for so vehement a debate among the umpires that it seemed likely to result in a continuation of yesterday's quarrel. The music played by these musicians is not known for certain, but we can use tunes from the manuscript of John Old of Parr, who was a musician in the 19th century, also a dance master. 40 Thieves is an interesting example of a jobbing tune in his manuscripts. Here it's played as a jig for dancing, but it's related to a carol called The First Good Joy of Mary, but you may also know it as the Old Grey Duck.
Procession is a good example of a tune that's a jobbing tune, played as a carol, played as a dance tune and played as a folk song. Another interesting jobbing tune is we found in the manuscripts of John Harris, who was a church musician in St Stephen, and he had all his music formally laid out in his manuscripts. But tucked inside there's a few little diddly tunes, and one of these tunes is called the Stony Steps. It's a nice little march, nice little reel really, and surprisingly enough it's very similar to a march or reel called the Duke of Cornwall, which was found in the manuscripts of John Old. So here we're going to play those two tunes together, the Stony Steps and the Duke of Cornwall.
Some villages in the clay country pop in and out of existence as the clay works move, shift. And one of those you might think about is Ritu, which still has signposts to it today, but where the road is cut off. In 1977, a gentleman called Claude Parkin gave us a dance from his home village of Trelawsa. And the dance, very similar, he said, to a monkey's hornpipe, had been danced by one John Jago on his kitchen table. When he was a little boy, he remembered watching the heels coming down as he danced like a monkey's hornpipe. Sadly, the dance, like the village, is now lost.
Fortunately, we do have a tune from St Austell called Wee Bee. This recalls the tradition of travelling tailors. It was collected by Ralph Dunstan in the 1930s, and he gives a lovely write-up of it. In the old days, it was a custom for tailors to visit the homes of farmers and others to make up their clothes for them. An outworking tailor was called a whip-the-cat, for some obscure reason. These whip-the-cats frequently travelled in company, gently on foot, and enlivened their often long journeys by singing and whistling. In the workroom, too, they were noted for their singing and whistling of songs and hymns. To sing like a tailor was a mark of vocal superiority. No doubt many tailors' songs were the popular songs of the period, but Wee Bee had pride of place, being the traditional standard song with improvised additions. Every member of the travelling company had their own couplet, their own lyrics, but it served more particularly as a marching song and could be extended to any desired length. Today, we improvise Wee Bee to play a jig and introduce our jiggy doll.
This dance is called Cock in Breeches. It's a harvest dance which was collected from a lady called Mrs. Roos, and she had remembered this dance being done when she was a little girl by the lady from down the road, who would come and dance it to you, whether you wanted it or no, on your birthday. As you watch the dance, you'll see the story unfolding of the sowing the seed, of the raking of the soil over the seed, of the scything, and finally of the winnowing.
Well, let's see if we can find a little excerpt of somebody dancing that, shall we?
Good idea.
We'd like to talk about one of the fascinating traditions of the clay country area now, and that is the tea treats. Of course, tea treats were known all over Cornwall, but the clay country had its own special version of the tea treat. One of the dances they did was called the Jolly Miller. This is a fascinating dance where the dancers almost replicate the millstone going round in different ways like that as it crushes up the grain. So shall we play the tune, shall we?
Yeah.
We'll play the Jolly Miller's tune. It's a lovely tune we actually collected, or rather a friend of ours collected from the Chapman family, who live at Balowther, just on the eastern edge of the clay country there.
Another fascinating dance or tradition from the clay country tea treats is called snail creep. A lot has been written about this one, so I'm going to read it straight from the horse's mouth. At Roach and in one or two other adjacent parishes, a curious dance is performed at their annual feasts. I am of the opinion it is of very ancient origin. It enjoys the rather undignified name of snail creep, but will more properly be called the serpent's coil. The following is a scarcely perfect description of it. The young people, being assembled in a large meadow, the village band strikes up a simple but lively air and marches forward, followed by the whole assemblage, leading hand in hand, or more closely in the case of engaged couples. the whole keeping time to a lively step. The band, or head of the serpent, keep marching in ever narrowing circles, whilst its train of dancing followers becomes coiled around it. It is now that the most interesting part of the dance commences, for the band take a sharp turn about and retrace the circle, still following as before, and a number of young men with long leafy branches of trees direct this move with military precision. The lively music and constant repassing of couples make this a very exhilarating dance, and no rural sports which your poets treat could be more thoroughly enjoyable. Taken from the Western Antiquarian in 1881.
Well, let's see if we can find some video footage now of the snail creep as it was done a few years ago at Wilmorton. Wonderful piece of footage. Let's have a look.
Well, we hope you've enjoyed our very quick trip through the music and customs of the Clay Country in the company of Harry and Carrie. So from Harry and Carrie, goodbye.